So my name is Stephen Bediako. I'm the director of the Social Innovation Partnership. We are a social business based out of London. We do a lot of work with governments and foundations, helping them to think about how to use innovation and evidence to transform their programs and understand the impact of their work. So I've kind of got my iPad here. Genevieve's got the clicker, some kind of technology to the hills. But what I'm going to try and do today is provide a very short overview of our work and what we're doing in London and the UK. Then what we want to do is have a bit of what we call a gallery walk. So we've got kind of posters up around the room, case studies of our work, parts of it, how it works, and we want you to kind of get up after, go around, have a discussion, make comments, and feedback that way. So yeah, and then we want to have a bit of a QA around that. So first slide, the need for improved evidence. So back in 2010, you had a lot of challenges in London. And, I mean, let's be honest, the agenda for this started from a deficit position, right? So, the mayor of London had, over 100 young people murdered in the space of 2 to 3 years. You had issues with unemployment, with child poverty. And that really led to a question about, how do you know what works in improving outcomes for young people? How do you know where to put your money and to put your resources? And so, that really led to the design and the setup of a set of standards of evidence, right? So the mayor had some academics develop these standards and put them together to encourage the sector in London to think about how it measures the impact of its work. Now, we got involved around 2011 to support the development of those standards and to think about how they could be adopted by the sector. So just to give you a sense of what these standards involve, so at standard 1, it's about having a project model and evaluation plan. So it's about having a theory of change and some kind of plan for how you might go about measuring your work. The second level is about being able to indicate a level of impact, so about being able to measure pre and post, the work that you're doing, just kind of trying to track and understand whether you're making a change. The third level is about evidence of impact. So this is where you start to move into trying to build a comparison group. So, looking at the work that you've done with the individuals you're working with and comparing them to individuals that you're not working with. And I think some of the earlier presentations, alluded to the challenges of trying to do some of this kind of work. The fourth level is about being able to replicate that work and showing it having an impact. And the fifth level is about having multiple replications which show an impact. Now, the challenge for the mayor and his team was, this stuff's all great, but people don't really get it, right? And also, people are pretty busy trying to do the good work that they're meant to be doing. So, how do you create a way or a space for people to want to adopt this work and go on a journey of trying to build and improve their evidence? So the goal for Project Oracle was to design a sustainable system that would help funders and commissioners in London, providers of the services, and also academics and experts who can help people to measure the impact of their work to engage with this set of standards, right? So what you can see here now are the standards of evidence kind of wrapped up in a box, and really the goals around it. So trying to generate better evidence, trying to encourage the use of better evidence. And then the circles around are what we describe as kind of mechanisms, right? They're kind of activities that we developed to encourage the adoption of these standards, but to do it in a way that speaks to the point about learning, development, looking to improve services, rather than just kind of filling in reporting forms to return to funders. So just to spin around them very quickly, evidence competition. This is where we basically encourage organizations to come up with ideas for how they want to evaluate their work, different approaches, innovative approaches, and we give financial prizes to the best ones, encouraging them to try and develop their understanding of this stuff. Research placements, that's where we pair up organizations who can't typically afford or don't have the capability or the capacity to do this stuff with masters or PhD students or junior lecturers, right? So encouraging that resource to connect with those provider organizations to help them go on their evidence journey, right? To start to build their theory of change or their evaluation plan. And that's a win-win for everyone involved, right? The students get some experience, and the organizations get the support they need. We also do training and validation. So validation is where you're supporting organizations to try and, get a stamp against one of those levels of evidence. And what we also do is at 1 and 2, we support organizations to achieve that. Where people are trying to achieve standard 3, we then introduce academics to review their submissions and give an independent assessment of that work. So to try and introduce some objectivity in there. Synthesis of evidence, as someone mentioned before, when you're publishing evidence in journals, by the time it's published, it's too late, it's too rigorous, it sits on the shelf. So what we do is we encourage organizations in London who are measuring their work to come together, bring those studies together, we synthesize them, and we put them into reports and share them with people. So we call that the grey literature, right? The stuff that people don't know about. And there's insights in there that people can learn from. Evidence Champions is actually geared towards funders and commissioners, right? So there's a guy over here who talked about accountability for funders and commissioners. In our work, it's not just providers and academic experts who need to be part of the ecosystem to make this stuff work, it's funders and commissioners. So we run seminar sessions with them to think about how they can do better evidence-based commissioning and how they can build this stuff into their work so that they're spending their money in an effective way and encouraging the right behaviors. And then we also help them to develop outcomes frameworks. So again, that's where they get quite consistent about what they're asking of different providers and different networks to deliver on their behalf so that those guys can then go about, do that work, and measure it in a consistent way. So that's what we've managed to build over the last kind of couple of years. It's been hard work. Happy to take questions and talk about it a little bit later. In terms of what we have managed to achieve in that time, we've managed to support over 200 organizations with validating themselves against those standards of evidence. We've also managed to train over 300 organizations and also 40 funders on how they develop this work, and we've managed to develop 4 synthesis studies, and we're working on more. We had an independent evaluation, so the evaluators being evaluated occurred back in 2013, which basically highlighted that there was a need for our work and that people's mindsets were moving. And I think, what are we trying to achieve with this work? We're trying to do 2 things. We're trying to get the London system to appreciate how to generate, use, and share evidence. And then we're also trying to build a depository of validated projects. You can go on our website and you can see these projects so that can inform people who are commissioning programs or people who are developing programs to think about what they do next. We're just in the throes, so we've been going for about 2.5 years now. We're just about to appoint a next set of evaluators to evaluate our work, to try and understand the impact of it, and so that starts next month. I mean, the thing to say as well is really, really, proud and honored to be here. Thanks to Uzo and the team for giving us a platform to come and talk about our work, but also for knocking and kind of working together to support YouthREX. I think what you guys are doing here is critical work. It's tough work, but it's really important because there's just challenges with kind of closing the language barriers, bringing the different actors together, and trying to get some understanding. So what next for us? So we are continuing to develop the work in London. We now have a database, which means that we have a really deep understanding of the sector, organizations, who they're funded by. And so we're now starting to run cohort models where we're bringing organizations who are using arts-based interventions together, along with their funders, along with the locations that they're working in, and supporting them to go on that journey. We're also exploring, obviously working internationally, so we're glad to be here. We've also been in the US, and we're also talking to some European countries about the work that we're doing. And yeah, we've also got involved nationally in the UK. So in the UK, there is a big drive around evidence, and I think sometimes it can get caught up in being a government-led agenda. And I think going back to my earlier point where our work emerged from a deficit model, actually what we've done is kind of by stealth, we've turned it into a sector-led model, right? So we've actually encouraged the sector to embrace our approach and to try and build this work from a learning perspective. So a lot of the organizations who get involved with us, they're not doing it because, they have to do it with their funders. They're doing it because it's the point that you were making, they want to learn. They want to continually improve what they're doing, and someone I work with back in the UK, one of my mentors, Lord Victor Adebowale, he always says, if you're passionate about what you do, you should be passionate about measuring it, And I think just when you think about it like that, it just comes home. It's like we can't say, oh, we're doing good work. We feel like we're doing good work. You need to take some responsibility to measure it. And then the question is about how do you measure it? In what way, and how are we approaching that? And I think that's what YouthREX will help you guys to explore.